This is about eponymity, if there is such a word. I want to say a bit about the word eponymous by giving 3 examples. The first is a cheat because it isn't something named for somebody, but it is loaded with double meanings, so I'm including it. It's the Tower of Babel. This comes from a story in Genesis. Babel is not mentioned in the story, not specifically. It is after the Great Flood, and humanity speaks one language. They enter the land of Shinar and decide to build a city and a tower. The tower will lead them to heaven. That is what they believe. The city could be Babel, which could be Babylon. The tower could be a ziggurat, maybe 300 feet high. For some reason, maybe he didn't want visitors, God was pissed off by this tower, so he scattered mankind around the earth and caused them to speak in different languages, what came to be called the confusion of tongues, still on display every day at the headquarters of the United Nations. There is a Hebrew word like Babel, which means gate of God, and there is a Hebrew word like Babel, which means to jumble or confuse. Both would seem to apply here, and from this we get the modern word Babel, still on display everywhere on the surface of the planet. Why God would be pissed off by a 300-foot tower is a mystery to me, but the story takes place in Old Testament times, and I think God was easily pissed off then, as for instance the Great Flood would indicate. He became more merciful in the New Testament, and that's good because now we've got all these skyscrapers. Anyway, Babel is the city, the tower, and the confusion of tongues. Next up is Thomas Crapper, who is no myth, he really did exist. In 1861, he began working as a plumber and became a specialist for high-end, so to speak, clients. In 1870, he created a showroom for his bathroom products, and that would have featured the revolutionary flush toilet, aka the Crapper. Over the years, his company received several royal warrants, whatever they are, and I believe they are still in business. Their motto is the Crapper difference, and they are obviously aware of the striking name, using it proudly and prominently in their advertising. And I still feel as if someone is pulling my leg. Thomas Crapper, really? That's what I call eponymous. Finally, we have the famous Laffer curve, and it is, for me at least, a real Laffer, a howler. It is said to have been drawn on a napkin, where else, by the economist Arthur Laffer, as a means of educating some staffers of then-President Gerald Ford. It is also said to be the basis for the financial policies of Ronald Reagan. Laffer was a supply-side economist, a capitalist's dream. His curve is a semicircle, and it shows that if you have 0 taxes on the far left of the curve, then you have 0 revenue for the government, and that is math that even I can understand. It also shows on the far right of the curve that if you have 100% taxation, you also have, once again, 0 revenue for the government, because no one would be willing to work for nothing, and that's what they'd be doing if you took all of the profits in taxes. So far, very logical. In the middle of the curve, a line is drawn down, a radius, and Laffer designated this line as T. T is the sweet spot, the level of taxation which generates the greatest amount of revenue for the government. Calling this point T is what makes the curve a Laffer, because T tells us nothing about what that level of tax might be. It's guaranteed to be somewhere between 0 and 100. For a supply-side economist, it would be as low as possible. Looking at the drawing objectively, since T looks to be falling right in the middle of the curve, it would call for a 50% tax rate, a number I'm sure would have horrified economist Arthur Laffer, and that is why his curve is such a Laffer. The Tower of Babel, Thomas Crapper, and the Laffer curve. It seems to me that the 3 were somehow destined to be together. I am pleased to be the one who has presented them to you in one tidy basket.